Today, we're going deep on a condition that affects millions and millions of people, clinical depression. Now, for a long time, the story we were all told about it was, well, pretty simple, maybe a little too simple. But the real science, it's this fascinating, incredibly complex puzzle that researchers are really just now starting to put together.
So where do we even start? I think first we need to get a handle on the sheer scale of this challenge. And, what makes it so uniquely difficult for scientists to even get a grip on?
1 in 6. Just let that sink in for a minute. That's the lifetime risk for anyone in the US to experience clinical depression. This is not some fringe condition. It is incredibly common. And that fact alone makes our struggle to truly understand it that much more urgent.
This table really gets to the core of the problem. With something like type 2 diabetes, we've got objective tools, blood tests, clear numbers we can track. We've even found specific genes linked to it. But depression? It's a whole different ballgame. Diagnosis is based on how someone feels, what they report. And get this, 2 people can have the exact same diagnosis of major depression and share only one symptom. So you can see how tough that is for scientists. How do you find a single biological cause for something that looks so different in everyone?
Okay, so with all that complexity, what have we learned? This is where the story gets really, really interesting. This is where we start moving past those old, simple ideas and begin exploring the incredible wiring of the brain itself. So, the first huge leap forward in recent years was a total shift in perspective. Instead of zeroing in on a single chemical, like serotonin being low or out of balance, scientists realized we have to zoom out and look at the whole picture. It's not about one faulty part, it's about the entire emotional circuit in the brain having communication problems. Think of these as the major hubs in that network. You've got the prefrontal cortex, which is where those awful feelings of guilt and worthlessness can just get stuck on an endless loop. The amygdala is like your emotional smoke detector. And the nucleus accumbens and VTA, that's your reward and pleasure system. When that goes offline, you get that terrible symptom of depression where nothing feels good anymore. The key here is that in depression, it seems like the phone lines between all these critical areas are just not working right. And this is where that new understanding of circuits becomes absolutely revolutionary. For people who have the most severe, treatment-resistant depression, there's a procedure called deep brain stimulation. It's amazing. Surgeons can actually implant tiny electrodes directly into a specific part of this faulty circuit and use them to basically retune the network's activity. And the results for some people can be truly life-changing, offering hope where there really wasn't any before. All right, now we get to what is probably the biggest myth-busting part of this whole story. It's an idea that completely challenges the old view of our brains as being fixed and unchangeable. And to really get it, we have to go back and look at a very, very famous theory. I mean, you've definitely heard of this one, the chemical imbalance theory. The idea that depression is just a simple lack of serotonin. It was a really neat, easy to understand story, and man, it's stuck around for decades. But scientifically speaking, it had a huge flaw. And here is that flaw, the big mystery. When someone takes an SSRI antidepressant, the serotonin levels in their brain go up almost instantly. We're talking within hours. So if low serotonin was the only problem, you'd expect people to feel better right away. But they don't. It can take weeks, sometimes even months, to feel the real benefits. And this time lag, this was the huge puzzle that the simple chemical imbalance theory just could not solve. So the answer to that puzzle is this amazing concept called neuroplasticity. The idea here is that antidepressants don't just turn up a chemical volume knob. What they actually do is kickstart a much slower, much deeper process. They help the brain literally rewire itself. Over all those weeks, they're encouraging new connections, even new cells to grow, helping those emotional circuits to heal and become stronger. But of course, it's never that simple, right? Even this new model isn't just a more is better story. Let's take this key molecule for brain growth, BDNF. For a while, scientists thought low BDNF was bad and high BDNF was good. Easy, but it's way more complicated. In one part of the emotional circuit, the hippocampus, more BDNF does seem to have an antidepressant effect. But in another part, the reward circuit, stress actually increases BDNF, and that seems to make depression symptoms worse. It's the perfect example of how it's all about balance and, crucially, location, not just having more or less of one thing. Okay, so we've got these brain circuits that can literally be rewired. But how does something like life experience, especially something like chronic stress, actually cause these physical, long-lasting changes? Well, for that answer, we have to zoom in even deeper,
all the way down to our DNA. The absolute best way to think about this is with a computer analogy. Your DNA, that's the hardware. It's the fixed code you're born with. Epigenetics, on the other hand, is the software. Your life experiences, stress, trauma, diet can install these little chemical tags right on top of your DNA. Now, these tags don't change the code itself, but they act like little software notes, telling your body which genes to read and which ones to basically ignore.
So how does that work? Well, one kind of tag, acetylation, it basically loosens up the tightly packed DNA, making a gene really easy to read. It's like turning a gene on. Another kind of tag, methylation, does the exact opposite. It tightens the DNA coil, hiding the gene and silencing it, turning it off. And here is the absolute key. Chronic stress is one of the main things that can go in and start flipping these switches, creating a biological memory of that stress that can last for years and years. And look, this isn't just a theory. In a really famous experiment, scientists studied rat pups. The pups that got a lot of licking and grooming, a lot of nurturing care from their mothers, grew up to be calm, well-adjusted adults. The pups that were neglected grew up to be really anxious. And the difference? Well, the neglected pups had an epigenetic off switch put on a super important gene that helps them manage stress. That little molecular scar, which was created in the first week of life, changed how their brains responded to stress for the rest of their lives. It's just an incredible example of how our earliest experiences get physically woven into our biology. Okay, so we've spent a lot of time talking about what goes wrong in the brain, but the science also has this really hopeful, amazing story to tell about what goes right. I mean, why is it that some people can go through tremendous stress and seem to come out the other side okay? The answer, it turns out, isn't just about personality. It's about the active biology of resilience. So to figure this out, scientists use this experiment called social defeat stress. Basically, they put a mouse in a cage with a bigger, more aggressive mouse day after day. It's a really powerful way to model chronic social stress. But here's the fascinating part. Not all the mice react the same way. About 2/3 of them become anxious, they avoid other mice, we call them susceptible. But the other third, they just kind of shake it off and keep going about their business. They're resilient. So the big question is, what is going on in their brains that's different? And when the scientists actually looked inside their brains, the difference was just night and day. In the susceptible mice, the ones that became depressed, the stress made their reward circuits go haywire. But the resilient mice, that's a whole different story. Their brains aren't just passively taking the stress, they are actively fighting back. They actually turn up the activity of certain ion channels that act like a brake on the system, which counteracts the stress signal and keeps everything in balance. This is such a powerful idea. It's a real game changer. Resilience isn't just being tough or not having a vulnerability. It is an active biological process. The brain is literally adapting, pushing back against the stress in real time. And if it's a biological process, well, that means we might be able to create future treatments that don't just fix what's broken, but that actually boost the brain's own natural built-in resilience machinery. And all this incredible new science is just blowing the doors wide open for new kinds of treatments. We're seeing things like ketamine, which works almost instantly and on a completely different system in the brain. There are drugs being developed that could literally go in and flip those epigenetic switches back to a healthy state. Scientists are even finding these deep connections between the hormones that control our gut and appetite and our mood. It is so clear that the future of treatment is so much bigger than just serotonin. So, where does all this leave us? I mean, we've come such a long way. From thinking depression was caused by black bile in ancient Greece, to the simple chemical imbalance theory, and now to this amazing dynamic picture of adaptable brain circuits that are shaped by both our genes and our experiences. And it leaves us with this really hopeful, powerful question for the future. What if we can move beyond just treating illness and start actually building the science of resilience?